I told my husband he should have just married a white woman. So? I'm a black woman. My husband's white. And this whole thing started because of my hair scarf. I have frizzy hair, which means it's really tightly coiled. And if I don't take care of it right, it turns into a nightmare. It breaks easy, tangles like crazy. And I've been growing it out, so now it's past my shoulders. I started wrapping it up at night in a satin scarf because I also use oils now. And I'm not about to ruin my pillowcases with that stuff. First night, I wore the scarf to bed. My husband looks at me in my nightgown and scarf and goes, "You look like a slave," I'll admit. I kind of laughed because, yeah, the combo was a bit much, so I let it slide. But then it didn't stop. Every single night after that, he'd make some comment. "Are we doing the slave thing tonight? Or should I help you into bed, Grandma?" At first, I thought he was just being dumb and would get over it. But it kept going. I explained to him why I wore it, how my hair works, why it's important. And he'd nod along like he got it. But then the jokes would start up again the next night. This went on for like 3 weeks. 3 weeks of the same stupid comments every time I got ready for bed. I started getting annoyed, but I didn't want to make it a huge deal. You know, I figured he'd eventually just get used to seeing me in the scarf and move on. But nope. Last Tuesday night, I'm getting ready for bed, and I can't find my scarf anywhere. I checked the bathroom, the dresser, under the bed, everywhere. So, I asked him if he'd seen it, and he gets this grin on his face and says, "Yeah, I hid it." I thought he was joking at first, so I was like, "Okay, where is it?" And he just shrugs and says, "I'm not telling you." I could feel myself getting mad. But I tried to stay calm. I asked him again, and he goes, "Come on, just sleep without it tonight. I want to run my fingers through your hair." That's when I lost it. I told him if he wanted to run his fingers through someone's hair so bad, he should have just married a white woman. The second it came out of my mouth, the whole room went dead silent. He stared at me for a few seconds, then got up, walked to the closet, and pulled my scarf out from behind some boxes. He didn't say anything, just handed it to me and went to bed. The next morning was so awkward. He barely looked at me during breakfast, and when he finally did talk, he said we needed to go to couples counseling for our race issues. I was like, "What races?" He said it made him feel racist and that clearly we had some deeper problems we needed to work through. I told him I didn't think it was that serious and I wasn't trying to call him racist. I was just mad that he hid my scarf and wouldn't stop making jokes. He said it didn't matter what I meant, that's how it made him feel. We've been going back and forth about this for almost a week about whether I owe him an apology, or whether he owes me one, and honestly it feels like we're talking in circles. He keeps saying the issue isn't the scarf, it's what I said. And I keep saying the issue isn't what I said, it's everything that led up to it. Every time I try to explain how his comments made me feel, he acts like I'm exaggerating or being overly sensitive. He keeps repeating that he was just joking, and that he didn't mean anything racist by it. But that doesn't really change how it landed. I tried to explain it to him like this: imagine if every night, right before bed, I made jokes about something deeply tied to who you are, something you don't get to take off or ignore. Imagine if I kept poking at it after you asked me to stop. He said that wasn't the same thing because hair is just hair. That's when I realized how far apart we actually are on this. For him, my scarf is an accessory he doesn't like. For me, it's maintenance, it's culture, it's comfort. It's not hating my natural self enough to damage it just so someone else can feel better. The counseling thing really threw me. Not because I'm against therapy, but because of how he framed it. He didn't say, "We should talk to someone because I crossed a line, and I don't want to do that again." He said we needed counseling because I made it racial. That hurt a lot. It felt like he was shifting the blame onto me for reacting instead of owning the fact that his behavior pushed me there. I asked him why hiding my scarf wasn't crossing a line to him. He said he thought it would be playful, and that I'd realize he just wanted to feel close to me. That's when I asked him why closeness for him seems to require me being uncomfortable. Why my comfort was negotiable, but his desire to touch my hair wasn't. He didn't have a good answer. He just said marriage is about compromise. And maybe that's true. But compromise doesn't mean one person constantly giving things up while the other keeps pushing. Boundaries. The worst part is that now bedtime feels tense. Something that used to be relaxing now feels loaded. I tie my scarf and I can feel him watching me like he's holding something back. Sometimes he sighs. Sometimes he just turns over without saying goodnight. And every time, I wonder if he's thinking about what I said. Or if he's still annoyed that I won't just give in and sleep without it. A few nights ago, he finally said something that made my chest drop. He told me he feels like I weaponized race against him, and that it scared him. I asked him if he'd ever stopped to think about how scary it is to have your partner mock you nightly with comments that echo centuries of trauma, even if he claims he didn't mean it that way. He said I was being dramatic again. That's when it hit me that this isn't really about a scarf or even about that one comment I made. It's about whether he's willing to actually listen when I tell him something hurts me, even if he doesn't fully understand why. It's about whether he sees my experiences as valid or as inconveniences. I didn't tell him he should have married a white woman because I hate him, or because I regret our relationship. I said it because in that moment, it felt like he wanted the parts of me he liked, and none of the parts that require understanding or respect. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if counseling would help or if it would just turn into me having to explain my existence to someone else in the room. I do know that I'm tired of feeling like I have to defend basic care for my own body. I'm tired of feeling like my reaction is a bigger problem than what caused it. And I'm tired of being told I made things racial when I'm just responding to what's already there. So yeah, we're still stuck. He's waiting for an apology for what I said. I'm waiting for him to acknowledge that what he did wasn't funny, playful, or harmless. And until one of those things happens, the scarf stays on, the distance stays between us. And I'm left wondering if love is supposed to feel this exhausting. When it comes to being fully yourself. Storytime. My father suddenly called. Where are you now? I was at my in-laws' house for my wife's birthday party. At my in-laws, the whole family is here. I said, listen, take your daughter and get out now. I asked, why? He replied, just do it now. Don't ask questions. His voice was unlike anything I'd heard before. I grabbed my daughter and ran out of the house. What happened next was shocking. Chapter 1. The Call. The party was in full swing. Laughter spilled out of the dining room. Glasses clinked, and the rich aroma of roasted lamb and buttered naan filled the air. My wife's family thrived on loud celebrations, and tonight was no different. Her birthday was an excuse to gather everyone, cousins, and all, under one roof. I was standing near the kitchen balancing a plate of cake for my daughter, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Dad. I almost didn't answer. He rarely called when he knew I was at family events, but something made me swipe the screen. Hey. Dad. His voice was sharp, urgent. Where are you now? At my in-laws, I said, glancing toward the crowded dining room. The whole family's here. Why? He took a breath that sounded more like a warning than a pause. Listen, take your daughter and get out now. I froze. What? Why? Just do it now. Don't ask questions. His voice cracked, not with weakness, but with a tension I'd never heard from him before. I didn't argue. I set the plate down, crossed the room, and found my daughter playing with her cousins. Come on, sweetheart, I whispered, forcing calm into my voice. We're going for a drive. Behind me, my wife called. Where are you going? The candles aren't even lit yet. I didn't answer. My father's tone was still ringing in my ears. The night air outside was cool against my face as I buckled my daughter into the car seat. My heart was thudding hard now, my mind racing through a dozen scenarios. I pulled away from the curb and hit redial. Dad, I'm out now. Tell me what's going on. What he said next made my grip tighten on the steering wheel until my knuckles had. Chapter 2. The Warning. Dad's voice came through the speaker, low but urgent. Drive somewhere public, a gas station, a busy plaza, anywhere with people. Don't go home. Don't go to my house, and don't turn back. I glanced in the rearview mirror. My daughter was watching the streetlights flicker by, humming to herself. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. I just got off the phone with a friend in law enforcement. They've been building a case for months against your in-laws, and it's bad. Fraud, money laundering, maybe worse. My grip on the wheel tightened. What does that have to do with me? They're trying to tie you into it. Your wife's name is all over some of the accounts, and the way it looks on paper, you're involved. Whether you knew or not. My friend said if you were in the house when they moved in, you could be taken down with them. I swallowed hard. The laughter and chatter from earlier replayed in my head, suddenly sounding more like the Last Supper than a celebration. So, this was planned to use me as a fall guy. Dad's pause was all the confirmation I needed. Get somewhere safe. I'll meet you in 20 minutes. We need to talk face to face. And I'll tell you everything. I turned off onto a well-lit boulevard. But in the mirror, a black SUV appeared, closing the distance fast. The same SUV I'd seen parked down the street from my in-laws when I arrived. And it wasn't passing me. Chapter 3. The Chase. The SUV closed in fast, headlights glaring in my rearview like a predator locking onto prey. Dad. I said into the speaker, keeping my voice low so my daughter wouldn't hear the fear under it. I think someone's following me. How close? Too close, I muttered, changing lanes. The SUV matched my movement. Listen carefully, Dad said, his tone suddenly clipped and tactical. Don't speed. That'll draw police attention. Just keep moving towards somewhere busy. Take turns only, you'd know. Make them work to keep up. I flicked my signal right, then at the last second cut left into a side street. The SUV followed without hesitation. My heart kicked harder. Daddy, Why are we going a different way? My daughter asked from the back, her voice small. I forced a smile into my tone. We're just taking the fun way, sweetheart. A little game. But inside, I was scanning every storefront, every light, looking for an escape point. Half a mile ahead, I spotted Salvation, a brightly lit 24-hour gas station with a steady stream of customers. I pulled in hard, stopping right under the security cameras and fluorescent lights. The SUV slowed as it passed the entrance. For a moment, I thought they'd turn in, but instead it kept rolling, disappearing into the dark. I exhaled for the first time in minutes. Good, Dad said when I told him. Stay put. I'm almost there. And when I get there, you're going to hear something that will change how you see your wife's family forever. Chapter 4. The Truth. 10 minutes later, Dad's truck pulled into the gas station, the headlights cutting through the fluorescent glow. He stepped out quickly, scanning the lot before opening my passenger door. Move your car over there under the cameras, he said, pointing to a spot closer to the main entrance. His voice was still tense, but now there was a controlled precision to it, like a man who'd been through situations where one wrong move cost everything. Once my daughter was safely buckled into his back seat, Dad turned to me. They weren't just celebrating tonight, he began. They were closing ranks. My friend in the financial crimes unit told me the warrants are signed. They're hitting your in-laws' house tonight. Multiple agencies, and your wife's name is everywhere in the paperwork. I stared at him. But I've got nothing to do with any of this. That doesn't matter if they can make it look like you do, he said firmly. And trust me, they were setting you up. The accounts they used, many are joint in name only. She's been moving money. And the paper trail points to you. The words settled in like ice water in my chest. Dad leaned closer. If you'd stayed there, they could have planted something. Cash, documents, even devices to make you look like an active player. You'd be sitting in a holding cell right now while they tore your life apart. I thought about my wife's strange distractedness during the party. The way her father had been almost too friendly, refilling my glass, as if on cue. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. My father glanced toward the sound. That's them, he said. They're moving in now. I looked at my daughter in the back seat. Sleepy, safe? Completely unaware of the line we had just sidestepped, and I knew this wasn't over. Chapter 5. The Raid. The sirens grew louder, then cut off abruptly, replaced by the distant thud of car doors slamming and the sharp bark of commands. From the far corner of the gas station lot, I could see the faint flicker of red and blue reflecting against the sky. In the direction of my in-laws' neighborhood. My father's eyes never left that glow. They're surrounding the house now, he said quietly, almost to himself. I imagined the scene. Officers in tactical gear spilling across the manicured lawn, their boots crunching over the gravel path. The front door would swing open under the weight of a battering ram. And in seconds, the living room, the same one that had been filled with laughter and champagne minutes earlier, would turn into a storm of orders and shuffling feet. I called a friend who lived 2 streets over. He answered on the second ring, voice shaking. Man, your in-laws' place looks like a movie right now. Police vans, unmarked SUVs, agents hauling out boxes and bags. Your wife's out front, cuffed, arguing with some detective. My stomach clenched. And the kids, they're being taken out by a female officer, calm, but scared. Dad's jaw tightened. You see now why I called you? I nodded slowly. Every instinct screamed to go there to demand answers. But I knew it would be the worst move I could make if my father's warning was right. And by the look of things, it was stepping into that scene could have meant stepping into a cell. The phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my wife. Whatever you've heard, it's not true. Meet me, please. I stared at it, a cold calm settling over me. I didn't reply because after tonight, I wasn't walking blindly into anything ever again. Chapter 6. The Unmasking. By the next afternoon, the news was everywhere. Headlines splashed across local channels. Prominent business family at the center of federal fraud investigation. I sat in my father's study, my daughter in the next room drawing pictures with my stepmother, while Dad slid a manila folder across the desk. This is from Harris, he said, his friend in financial crimes. It's everything they have on your in-laws and your wife. Inside were page after page of bank statements, wire transfers, and contracts, each one a little knife twisting deeper. My wife's signature appeared on multiple offshore account authorizations. She'd been a joint signatory on real estate deals that were nothing but shells to wash dirty money clean. One folder tab was labeled Hey Setup. Inside, I found something that made my chest go cold. Forged loan agreements and fake consulting invoices, all with my name, all linking me directly to the laundering network. If the raid had happened with me there, they could have claimed I'd been complicit all along. They were going to dump this on you the moment the investigation got to close, Dad said grimly. Make you the scapegoat while they disappeared with whatever they could salvage. A wave of betrayal hit harder than the fear ever had. This wasn't just greed. It was planned, calculated. My wife had stood beside me at dinners, smiled at me across the table, tucked our daughter into bed, all while building the narrative that I'd be the one to take the fall. I closed the file slowly. She thinks I'll still protect her, that she can talk her way out. Dad leaned back. Then maybe it's time she learns exactly who she's dealing with. And in that moment, I knew I wouldn't just defend myself. I'd make sure she never had the chance to pull something like this on anyone else ever again. Chapter 7, Laying the Groundwork. The next morning, I was at Harris's office before the coffee in his mug had cooled. We went over everything again. Every signature, every forged invoice, every offshore account that carried my name without my consent. This is enough to clear you, Harris said, tapping the stack of evidence. But if you're thinking about going beyond that, we need to make sure it's bulletproof. She's going to fight for her reputation as hard as she fought to destroy yours. I nodded. Then we make it so airtight the fight never even starts. First step, public defense. Harris arranged for me to give an official statement through the DA's office, making it clear I was cooperating fully and had been instrumental in uncovering the scheme. It was dry, formal, and perfect. It painted me as a whistleblower, not the suspect. Second step, civil leverage. Mark, my attorney, filed a preemptive civil claim for damages against my wife, citing fraud, identity theft, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. This move froze any assets she still had access to pending litigation. Third step, social proof. Quietly, I let certain mutual friends, ones she'd never suspected being in my corner, discover parts of the truth. The court documents were public record now, and it didn't take much for the right screenshots to start circulating in group chats. Her carefully crafted image began to crumble without me saying a word. Through all of it, I didn't contact her once. Not a text, not a call. If she wanted to talk to me, she'd have to go through my lawyer. And by then, every conversation would be on the record. By the end of the week, her messages had shifted from defensive, "You don't know the full story," to desperate, "Please, can we meet?" But I wasn't interested in her version anymore. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was let her walk into it. Chapter 8, The Confrontation. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I just left a meeting with my attorney when I saw her standing near my car in the parking lot. Arms folded, sunglasses hiding most of her face. "Daniel," she said the moment I approached, her voice strained but attempting softness. "We need to talk alone." I stopped a good 6 feet away. "You know the rules. Anything you have to say goes through Mark." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "This isn't about the case. It's personal. You have to believe me." I didn't mean for things to go this far. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch until she started fidgeting with the strap of her purse. Finally, she blurted it out. "They were going to take me down, too? I thought if I played along, I'd be safe. But when you left that night, they turned on me. I need your help, Daniel." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because of the sheer gall. "You set me up to take the fall for crimes you knew about, and now you want me to save you." Her jaw tightened. "If you don't, I could tell them things that make you look bad, too." I stepped closer, just enough for her to see the calm in my eyes. "You mean the things they already know? The things Harris and the DA's office have documented, time-stamped, and tied directly to you?" Her face went pale. I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my jacket and handed it to her. "That's the notice of my civil suit against you. Fraud, identity theft, and damages. You'll get the full packet from my lawyer by Friday." She stared at it like it was burning her fingers. "You can't." "I can," I said, turning away. "And I'm like you. I don't bluff." By the time I reached my car, she was still standing there. Not the arrogant woman who once told me I had no choice, but someone who just realized every door she thought she controlled had been slammed shut. And I hadn't even begun the final stage yet. Chapter 9. The Final Blow. 2 months later, the final stage came together like clockwork. The DA's case against my in-laws was airtight, and my civil suit against my wife was moving forward without a hitch. But I wanted to make sure her reputation, the one she built on manipulation and lies, was beyond repair. That's when Harris called. "The press is requesting the public release of non-confidential evidence in your case. If you approve it, the court can release the documents." I didn't hesitate. "Do it." Within days, local news stations ran headline after headline. "Court documents reveal extent of fraud plot attempt to frame husband." They printed excerpts of her emails, the forged contracts, and most damning, her own words discussing how she'd make him look unfit for custody. Social media tore her apart. Former friends posted thinly veiled stories about people who use their own children as bargaining chips. The photos she once flaunted of lavish vacations and expensive gifts became evidence of a lot in gains. Financially, she was cornered. The civil suit froze her last remaining accounts, and the judge ordered restitution payments directly to me once her assets were liquidated. She had no choice but to sell her jewelry, her car, and even furniture to scrape together the first installment. The last time I saw her was in court when the judge finalized the settlement. She owed me full damages for fraud and identity theft. She was barred from any contact outside of supervised visitation with her daughter. She was legally required to issue a public retraction of her accusations. As we left the courthouse, she wouldn't look at me. Not because of shame. I don't think she was capable of it. But because she knew there was nothing left to play for. My father was waiting outside, leaning against his truck, when I walked over. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Told you," he said with a faint smile. "Sometimes the best revenge is just making sure the truth is louder than their lies." I looked over at my daughter, laughing with my stepmother on the sidewalk, and realized he was right. The truth had set me free and left her with nothing but the wreckage she'd made for herself. Epilogue, freedom earned. A year later, the chaos felt like another lifetime. The court battles were over. The settlement payments had started trickling in, and the cloud that had hung over my name was gone. I had gone from almost being the scapegoat in a multi-million-dollar fraud to being the man who exposed it. Life was simpler now, intentionally so. I kept my circle small, my finances locked down tighter than a vault, and my focus on my daughter. She was thriving, better grades, more friends, a laugh that came easily again. The tension she once felt at home had vanished, replaced by safety and routine. As for her mother, last I heard, she was working part-time, living in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. The public retraction she'd been ordered to issue remained online, her name forever tied to the case. Former friends avoided her, and the glamorous life she flaunted was a memory she couldn't resurrect. One evening, while watching the sunset from my porch, my father joined me with 2 mugs of coffee. "You know," he said, "that call I made to you, that was instinct. But you took instinct and turned it into justice." I looked out at the horizon, my daughter's laughter drifting from the yard. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's living so well they can never touch you again." And that was the real victory. Not just clearing my name, but building a life she could never take from me. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about the story in the comments below. Like the story,